Welcome to another episode of Lifestyle After 5. We are delighted to have you and to hear you for another Wednesday. So, there has been a lot of questions out there with a lot of change that is going on. And so today I have the pleasure of introducing one of the smartest men I've ever met as he
Facts.
introduced us to futurism. I had never heard of this topic, futurism. So you guys are in for the treat. So today, joining us to talk about exploring futurism, unveiling tomorrow's world with Richard Bukowski. Welcome to Lifestyle After 5, Richard. It is a pleasure to have you in what is going to be the start of a series. So you in for a treat. So after today, you get to get us for what another 29 episodes or whatever. He's going to really go through what futurism is, talk about the changes of tomorrow. And what I really love about it that I didn't think about beforehand was I want to quote you. You said, people of color will be in the future. And it really got my
Yes.
mind to thinking and pushed us. How you doing this
Yes.
morning?
Actually, yeah, thank you. Again, it's my honor to be here. It was in futurism training. I had taken some additional courses after a kind of a pushed career switch, from COVID. But I was already on track on picking up a lot of information kind of about futurism on some of the consultancy and projects that I was working on. And in Futurism 101, Afrofuturism is a very big part of it. And as I continue to expand, continue to work on it, continue to talk with people who are doing things with futurism. A lot of the feedback I would get back, I'm sorry, Afrofuturism, uh, would be kind of this uncomfortable aspect of the subject of Black people in the future, and it used to always surprise me. So it is very deep, in there. I don't find it an uncomfortable conversation to talk about Black people in the future. It's kind of a no-brainer, but it also kind of made me again, reflect, self-reflect, and kind of see where how and where this is all going, and then how I could use this as a kind of a tool, to continue.
So I want to ask you a
Please.
question. So you mentioned futurism 101. So is this something that you could take at is a college course or something that that's created by consultants? So what have you of any of those sorts?
Yeah. So there are like organized, futurism groups, companies, that do offer it when it comes to strategic forecasting, kind of as a
Mhm.
certification. Then also Coursera, one of the kind of more available um, um, uh, pro- um, programs that are out there for educational programs, also offers it. And so it's out there. All you have to do is, kind of a quick find. And if not, I could always, point a direction. But I personally took
Oh,
the
great.
Coursera course.
Oh, but it's not anything that's taught. You wouldn't find it in a college course, for have you, or in regular education.
Unfortunately, no. And I think that there's a message in there as well. So there are, some higher level courses that do go into strategic thinking and its association. But when it comes to like futurism and kind of putting it all
Mhm.
together, I no, I don't see it. In fact, it's not taught in most universities, and because of that, it's also not kind of recognized by people who graduate,
Mhm.
colleges and universities and groups. They don't know it, never seen it. They don't kind of apply it into their businesses, which again is a big shame. So that's a kind of another reason why kind of we're out here kind of pushing that.
Now, would some may argue, would it be the same as diversity?
It would be if futurism was a wheel, diversity is a spoke in that wheel. But I
Okay.
couldn't see it. Yeah, but I don't see it, as in like as I understand how diversity classes and and because I go to quite a few of them, it doesn't go long enough. There's no I never see anything that has a long game. Futurism, there's a long game,
Mhm.
right? It's a plan. Most of the diversity stuff that I know now or have seen now, it's more now, right? And
Mhm.
stays in in now, and the now needs help. Now is a good place for it. But like everything, there has to be, there should be a longer plan. So as I noticed, and again, keeping in with the, again, Black people in the future and kind of the diversity, I had quickly found, I think, like a lot of us, other, the current biases and things like in artificial intelligence and, let's just say other strategic, planning that's either buried in or not even considered, and it's got to be fixed. It's got to be out there. And I don't focus strictly on Afrofuturism stuff because obviously it's a spoke, right? There's a big wheel.
Mhm.
So Sino-futurism or Pan-Asian futurism, I think, is also very important. But I got to keep it real and kind of keep it to whoever's in who's listening.
Well, y'all heard it here. So that's the point of this series. We're going to tackle a lot of big questions, ethical dilemmas, and fascinating possibilities that lie ahead in just watching this series. Now, Rich is breaking down each of these topics. And of course, there's something that I wanted to bring up too is how you said in our conversation recently about how the lingo matters. And you saying too that there's no classes for this,
Mhm.
no traditional class where you can go and learn futurism just as an easy, straight, narrow path. You kind of have to do self research. So, that being said, is there a particular way that someone can learn the lingo who's watching this series, or should we uh, just kind of pay attention to how you speak and how you do your thing whenever these future episodes come into play?
Yeah. Well, there's definitely, I guess it's a little of both. And, first to mention, there is not the reason that there's not going to be a kind of organized class or not many of them in any kind of either higher education or even secondary education is
Mhm.
because it moves too fast. By the time you even wrote half of this stuff down, it's obsolete, right? So,
Yep.
it's very common for, even like with computer languages, right? I have a computer background, computer language background.
Mhm.
But, I had quickly learned that everything I was learning is not going to be used. I mean, they purposely even said it. So I wasn't even sure why I was even there. And so that was really the first time I started, kind of looking outside organized education to learn what I need to learn to get a job and to kind of do things. So no, so I don't blame a lot of again educational places and or that, but to have a framework, to have some type of language, to have and also some basic understanding of the framework of those languages
Mhm.
is important. Not out there, and really, you're the first you know, people that I have seen that really are pushing this, and it's again it's incredibly important. Right? It'll hopefully one clarify a lot of issues that are going on, with these trends and signals. But and it's my hope, and again, it's really hope of futurism that it also inspires people to kind of continue to look through it, to go that next level, to peel the onion and really kind of look look down. So yeah, so it's your own people will only get this information from media sources like yourself because it's just that no one else is either finding it a important. And what I have found in the field is that there's an aspect of embarrassment almost, like they should know
Yeah.
these words or they didn't know, or or it should have been incorporated in my life all this time, and now here I am learning about it for the first time. So that's why you got to be cool about it, kind of chill about it, or most likely have fun about
Right.
it, so I can kind of get that next place.
This is a safe
Because
space, y'all. This is for the
Let's talk about
futurists.
better late than never.
Right?
yeah, Now, there's one other
Go
thing
ahead.
about
Go ahead.
futurism I want to kind of bring up that it's important to
Mhm.
kind of get up straight, and is that I'm wrong, right? So most of the stuff that I'm going to be forecasting and moving, again, pushing the needle in most people's mind, they're all looking to get to there, right? Whenever there is, right? So, but I'm not, I'm not psychic, right? This is not like kind of a game and kind of all that. But what you're doing is you're using these. Hopefully, we'll address futurism 101 to show the tools and the methodology that we'll all be using to get there. And
Yes,
probably
sir.
like everything else in life that no one realizes, especially in these days, is that once we have a plan, once we have a direction, once we're all working off the same map, right, then it'll be easy to course correct, right? Something's going to change. There's a lot of influences that are kind of going on. And, don't we won't stay on that path if it's the wrong path, but we will course correct. We're going to be a lot further than most people. We will be first, most likely, in some kind of, aspects. But again, just don't, note that some forecasts and stuff that we'll be able to do today, may not be 100% correct in the future.
Okay.
Wow, that's very important.
Right.
Most people are rigid and they're not flexible and they're not used to adapting to change from what I understand and from what I've seen. And this is why it is so important that you follow us as we go through this series. It's not a one and done thing where we just come to you and just drop all this knowledge and keys in one episode. We had to break this thing down into 29 episodes, and then there may possibly be more after that as this is growing, and we're learning right along with you because there's a lot of change going on in our world. I mean, the money that we use, from cryptocurrency down to the technology that we use, AI is coming in, the threat of losing your jobs and everything. And Rich, as we go through these series, is going to be able to discuss and break down a lot of this stuff to enhance your understanding so you can make better decisions for your future. That's why it's called futurism. So
It's gonna be
I'm
lit.
definitely, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward, and I'm excited
Right.
myself as we go forward. Anything you passionate about? You extremely passionate about as we go forward in these series, Rich?
Well, me personally, since birth, if not, maybe a little bit past birth, because, again, you don't have language capabilities when you're a
Mhm.
baby and stuff like that. But it is
Right.
the future, business of science fiction, right? Or just by itself,
Mhm.
science fiction. I have been always a science fiction fan, mostly around Star Trek. Again, I hold a personal, doctorate
What
in
is
it.
it?
Live long and prosper.
Yeah, I cannot do that.
All the Star
Yeah,
Trek, the
true
Trekkies
Star Trek.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Dr. Spock.
it's it's such a great greeting, or I guess, and also it's a salutation to it's like live long and prosper is very similar to aloha, right? So you can kind of,
Right.
it's both hello and goodbye. It's kind of works in there, but I think it's easy to say. It's, again, it's a cornerstone, at least definitely to Star Trek and the other one. But I don't think a lot of people even break that down. Don't even really realize what it means or kind of says. Kind of obviously the live long part, right? But and again, there's you know not live long and be sick the whole time, right? It's
Right.
a long, it's a desire. It's, again, a wish and a blessing to go, into a much, again, further in your life, and to prosper, right? Like, it's not, work hard, not, sit around, not anything, but just like, have everything that you're doing in your life work out, right? Is that, so it may, again, sometimes it might be obvious, to when you're kind of listening, but I don't think like, really how deep that is, like, and at least, and definitely not something that people are saying to each other every day. There's a hello, goodbye, there's a this or that,
Right.
but I hope you live a long time, healthy, with all your family, and not, you know, broke or not lost or not something. And while that goes on, prospering is not one time. It just kind of continues.
Right. It's a
So
continuous
there's an
thing.
aspect of, I think, of futurism in that alone. It's just that, again, I
Yeah.
wish the greatest of all of us.
Well, Rich, I kind of have a question, and because I know we're gonna get into language as we go through these series. So I don't know how true it is, and have you heard about it? I make it a habit. I never say good morning to anyone. I always say good day. Now I've heard that morning is associated with the morning as in death, even though they're spelled differently. The same root words are there's an association to morning there. Have you done any studies in that area? Know anything about what I'm referring to?
I've never thought of it until now, um, and that you brought it up, and I appreciate it because again, it gave me another perspective that I never had before, which is all we want.
Hmm.
Um, I have not. I do definitely do a lot of language and language breakdown and kind of where it comes from. What kind of what it meant. I'm not getting immediately. My first reflex isn't the play on words. Kind of good morning, but it could be something up. Again, a program somebody let put in 500 years ago that we're still moving forward with. What I do know is that there's power in words, right? Both
Oh,
in
oh,
its kind of
definitely.
current, right? That's the, I guess, if I was going to put something together with that, I don't think of it as very negative. Again, I try to be positive, but again, I don't know everything, right? So what I would do again as a futurist would be apply my most of my methodologies behind that, right? So again, you could use that for AI, and you can kind of use that kind of for everywhere. So I would
Yeah.
look back to look forward, right? So I try to find where that came from. I guess there's an obvious, right? Good morning. Again, it's the beginning of your day. There's some kind of.
Right.
We also like to kind of separate our days, right? Morning, evening, and stuff. For that, and I know it's an old English word.
Mhm.
Used to sound like Morgan, good Morgan, but
Yeah.
I'll have to kind of look back a little kind of further in it, and then I would also try to see who what else is out there that's being used or has been used, and make a correlation to see if they're together. But I would like to expand on that a little bit more again in future episodes.
Yeah. We're gonna have to
Okay,
do an
so
etymology episode, man. That'd be fire for real.
Yeah,
yeah, people
I
don't
mean
realize the
there's a lot.
power of words.
No, most people don't. And there is a both an obvious connection to to words and how they're used, about how people see you, right? And value you once you're kind of out there using words, either professional, not professional, and slang, not slang, and that obviously puts puts you in a pool right away, depending on there. But the other part is that you hear those words,
Yep.
and there is a lot of some research that I have done around, because there is a strong spoke of futurism is brain physiology, right, and psychology, right, and so if we keep repeating these types of words, if we keep using these kind of words, we start believing in them, right, and they become part of our own program. So that's why you have to, monitor. There's a big push toward that. This for now and hopefully in the future. Again, the words we use, we have a strong internal dialogue, right? Most of the people that we have to watch out for are ourselves, right? I can't do this or that. It's against me, there, I don't have
Mhm.
the right family. I
Yeah.
don't, this, all of
Yeah,
that,
self-limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
there is that is a constant conversation that goes on in your brain, right? And then again, you keep going there, you keep programming it and stuff. So learning to how to talk to yourself, and again in a very positive, positive way, or at least not a negative way, will go far. in that. So that'll definitely be, that'll come up several times, I'm sure, in there
Oh
about,
yeah.
talking about the man and the woman in the mirror. We're almost our own worst enemies. We don't have to worry about other people like getting in our way.
Well, like you said, science fiction inspired you, and I'm just thinking. I've been thinking about that the whole time while you're talking about this, and I'm just like, yeah, I can see how that can get one looking towards the future. But now that you're, I guess an adult in terms of age or whatever construct, but seeing as how that's like making you make life decisions now and helping different businesses out. Uh, there's different things that we will be diving into, obviously, in this series. But I just wanted to thank you first for having this conversation with us because it's important that we are having these conversations. It's the reason why we were even inspired to do this series with you. So I do want to thank you, Rich, for just having a conversation because that's where the expansion starts. A lot of people, like you said, have that fear, like you should already know this, or this is how you should be mixed into this already. What are you doing? But I do want this to be a safe place for our watchers and listeners, and also a way for us to combat those different things that people might think are, um, I guess, taboo in the
Yeah,
future.
taboo or radical.
Yeah, exactly. So, fortunately, we have somebody here like Rich who's going to make this process a lot easier for us to get our point across. But another thing I wanted to bring up was another theme that we're probably going to have extensive episodes on is artificial intelligence, because one part of our series is the role of technology in our everyday life. And I know me and you talked about AI agents recently, and I just wanted you to kind of go over how you think that artificial will impact the different industries and our day to day life.
Yes, great. So the first point that I usually like to get out and make sure is congealed in everyone's brain as we continue to talk about AI, today, tomorrow, and hopefully 10 years, is that is just to kind of clarify what it is, right? We've all been using AI, or AI has been using us for almost a decade now. A lot of people don't realize it, and again, a lot of it has to do with the, again, algorithms and different parts in media and in e-commerce and things like that have
Right.
been kind of going on. Other decision making tools that have been out there also kind of influencing certain aspects of politics and gaming and any number of things there. So the first thing I'd like to get out first with AI, and this is the perfect way I think we should start the getting the terminologies and thing kind of straight moving forward, is that the connection, or at least the clarification of AI versus GAI, which is the generative AI, which is what in the last, like, say 3 years have really exploded when it comes to ChatGPT and Claude and kind of a few other ones. Is that AI is going to take information, variables, and such, run it through, it's, they're all a little different stuff, but run it through its kind of internal cognitive processes and then come back with an
Right.
answer, right? AI
Right.
will always give you the same answer if you always give it the same variables in the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, 5, plus 5 is 10, right? You can ask AI that question a million times, it's going to give you 10 for an answer, right?
Right.
Now, generative AI, right? It's the stuff that you've been seeing again with the Dolly, all the pictures and all the writing and kind of all, creative aspects, I guess, if you want to talk about AI, will
Yeah.
never give you the same answer twice, right? So if you ask for a picture of a blue cat sitting on a red car, it'll give that to you, most amazingly, probably. And then, but if you put that in again, I want the same words, the same thing, I want a blue cat and a red car, it'll give you a completely different picture. By design, it doesn't know any different. It's not that smart. All it knows is its program and how it was taught. And what makes the latter version of GAI really kind of, stunning is the fact that they added another variable to it, which was make the picture or make this, write the poem or, whatever it is, write the term paper,
Yeah.
but make it that based on your learning, what a human would find attractive or like, or pleasing is the actual word that they use. So it kind of goes in and finds, and again, all the other pleasing, cats on cars, adjusts and does it. So that's the two best ways to think about how AI is going to work and kind of how GAI works and any of the kind of future AI, right? As I mentioned, I am not particularly an expert, but there aren't that many others of XAI, which is explainable artificial intelligence. So, like right now, most of the systems can't tell you why it made that decision, right? And that in the kind of industry, we call that a black box. We can't see in it, right? We know information kind of goes in and information kind of comes out. Thank you. But AI needs to develop a line of trust for us to do anything else in the future with it, right? So XAI, which then leads us to a glass box, is that we can see inside, we can understand, and we can cue why it made those decisions. So we can learn from it and we could trust it, right? Trust is not given, right? It's earned, regardless of
Yeah.
who it is. If it's a computer, if it's your dog, if it's your girlfriend, kind of whatever. XAI is actually in use today, and it is mostly used within the medical and the financial worlds. It's built different. You can't just you can add a component to it to old AI, but it'll make it too long. It's too long in processing. But when it's done like correctly in the beginning, it's actually works very well. And so then we can. I'm not sure if we should deviate, but I wanted to kind of give an example of how
Mhm.
like a well-trained AI could be used and why we would trust it later on.
Go ahead, bro.
You want to go?
Mhm.
Okay, so one of the main, this is again, this should just kind of clarify the difference of AI, GAI, and all the other ones. So right now, and as I mentioned, medical, we use AI for diagnoses, right? And most common one was for breast cancer. It's the one that kind of comes up the most. It's the one that's the most, successful, as of lately. And there's even an emergence property out of it, which is, again, I think so fascinating and something we should all be keeping out for when we're looking at futurisms. Is that other things will kind of be starting to come out of here, and
Right.
so and I won't go into the whole how we train AI and all that, but we've shown AI a bunch of pictures. We have decades of breast cancer X-rays, MRIs, anything like that, right? And we say go and find when these kind of pixels look a little dark or look a little malformed or don't look normal or don't look anything like that, and recognize it as as cancer. And then it will go through all of its learning, all these, again, almost decades of history, and then have a sense of, okay, when I see something different here or here or here, again, regardless of how big or how small it is, I will recognize that as X, and X here is cancer, right? So
Right.
it's even found, well, it's actually used as a secondary right now, backup to most of the oncology and evaluations, just to make sure it basically doesn't miss anything. Like, well, we don't miss anything, right? But the emergent property out of it, right, is even more amazing, is that it had so much information. It has so much information. It has learned so much that in those pictures that it actually has been able to find pre-cancerous cells. So even or a commonality to that. So it's not a question that it was even asked, because we asked it to find these things. But it actually came back and said, I can tell that based on, again, my history, the people who have these kind of components, it looks like this, whatever it is like this, usually turn out to have cancer. So it's now doing like deeper diagnoses, right? And we can add that into so much other part of medical and financial and all that kind of stuff. But again, the trust has to come there. Why are you
Yeah.
making this decision? Why should I cut off this person's leg or breast or kind of something like that? And they would say because of this, and then you save a life, you love it, and year by year and stuff like that, we'll all start to have a better, trust levels for AI, which then allow us to do other things in our
That's awesome.
lives.
I love how you put that together, bro.
I do. What you said, Rich, I think this is a very critical, important time for people of color to get into futurism, into AI, because, like you mentioned in the beginning, there are biases. So I argue, how can one that don't experience, like you asked some people don't believe there's racism in the United States, or that the biases exist as humans. They don't see it. So how can
Yeah.
they train AI or a computer to determine and see biases? So unless we have people of color in there training and working with these AI is never going to recognize. Well, maybe it can get deeper learning, but I don't understand how it will ever get to the point of recognizing and solving some of these
Right.
biases if you don't have the people that are experiencing these biases involved in the system. And it's very critical when you got places like, I believe it's San Francisco, somewhere in California, where they actually got AI cops, robot cops, or dogs or whatever. They got dogs that are AI generated. And as you alluded to before, and as we will talk about in some of the futures series, smart cities.
Yeah.
So, can you give your opinion on that, the smart cities and the biases, and what I just stated about people of
No,
color
no,
getting involved in the AI?
right. So the first, um, and this is something that you mentioned before when it came to diversity, and this is why I think this is some parts of why diversity is so important, kind of across the board, right? Kind of
Hmm.
versus, I guess, what everyone has been thinking about, what it is now, and DEI is under huge pressure. In fact, even being removed from a lot of the,
Hmm.
it's a trend that I see now about really being removed from a lot of the woke companies that have incorporated that in, and and kind of getting pushed out. We can go into that for another term, another time, but about why it's being pushed out and actually how to save it to get it back in. But the
Right.
kind of easy example about the biases is self-driving cars was the first kind of like really the example most people use when it comes to trying to help people understand why the biases are there, and again, how do we fix it. So self-driving cars needed have a decision making process that they do all the time. And this isn't recent. I think they kind of, let's just say cleaned this up or added it in. But earlier on, when a self-driving car had to make a decision about running someone over, its tendency was always to run over the black people, right? And again, that's not something that wasn't a program that wasn't put in. Like there isn't anything that says, when you're making a choice between a white lady and a black lady, run over that's one of those kind of emergent things that kind of came in. Everyone who programmed that AI was a white person, most likely from a highly, whatever, working in some big tech company and all that. And there's probably not a lot of black people or, people with any color really, working there. So it kind of had figured out on its own because of the much deeper programming that's kind of been being put in there to
Yeah.
make those types of decisions, right? So if there was a black person on the, or several, or at least had it review it or kind of something like that, it wouldn't probably
Yeah.
make those choices and things like that. And then it would, I don't know what it would do, and science fiction actually, actually addresses that. And again, and later on. and smart cities, especially like the stuff that they've been doing in China. China is very big, smart city, and it also kind of makes these, these types of decisions and things like that about who should get fined, who shouldn't doesn't get fined, who should we arrest, and or any number of things like that. Will kind of keep in place. So that's a great, again, that self-driving decision-making thing was a kind of a really great example
Yeah.
of why,
Mhm.
that's all needed in there. There was but again, we learned from that, right? And one of my key components to futurism is biometrics, right? And biometrics
Mhm.
happen, are going on all the time, right? Right. Most one that most people understand are facial recognition, right? So there
Mhm.
are technology. A lot of it came out of Israel, which they're, again, because it was their need, right? But it's like again, they're really smart, and so they can kind of go out and say, this person, that person, right? The department stores started using that as well, right? And they kind of came in, and they would know if you were a repeat, what you bought last time, what you did there, and kind of they
Yeah.
use that for learning. But again, there's a built-in bias just because it's face, right? Just because it's face, it's color, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of how we do it, how our brain does it,
I can
right?
see that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the response to that is to find ways to identify you without your face, without your body. Well, still you need your body because it's biometrics. But any of the, let's just say any kind of key, or point differentiator that would make your face different than my face, or this face and that face, right? So there is a movement, and I hope, and I will continue to push it and stuff like that for various other ways to do identification. And the one I find, there's two I find that really kind of, float my boat. First is palm
All
recognition,
right.
right? So there are technologies that you could just place your palm as unique as everything else in your body, right? But it won't know any of the other parts about, my sex, my color, my age, my anything, right? It's just going to know that it's Richard, right? And it'll allow me in or allow me out depending on where I'm supposed to be, right? So, but this
Right.
way, there's no way for it to continue to learn and it kind of completely removes race and age and all the other things come out of the learning system, and it won't develop a bias, right? So and the other one I love is gait analysis, right? So gait analysis, and they're adding this into a lot of buildings and things like that. Is one of the things that another you can't copy the way somebody walks, right? That's also a very
Okay.
unique
Oh,
aspect
really?
to
Okay.
what we do, right? How we move, right? How we walk, how long our steps are, this and that. And AI can easily just kind of turn that into like a line. I have some examples if you ever want to see it, like a video of it, and it'll say, okay, this person is walking like Lord. Lord is allowed in here. Open up the gate, right? And so, again, it doesn't care, who you are, what you are. It just going to cares about, how far your feet are together, how your pace, your all those other things. So I am very positive about where biometrics and other, directions that technology is going, that you know, immediately erase any of the other kind of biases when it comes to race and things like that already out. The other stuff will just fade out.
Seems to me like AI need to get it right and teach the human race how to remove biases.
Yeah.
That would be
If
nice.
we being for real. Yeah, yeah.
We haven't figured that out
Gangster.
yet. As humans, we haven't figured out how to remove biases. So it'd be awesome if AI could pick it up and learn it.
Right.
Amen. Yeah, there is. Again, we have again. This is the royal we, all of us, right?
Hmm.
Depending on how old you are, you have that many years of biases and programming that have been kind of going on from other sources that have been programming you, most likely your family, your church, your friends, your school, your work, your this, that there's a lot of, long bias programming in ourselves that it's going to take more than I think, to, go on. And again, I like to bring in, the more positive science fiction that has covered that subject. You know, and kind of including,
Yo,
again, yeah, including Star Trek and kind of a few others, right? And again, I also think that has a, personally, again, a big influence on the way I grew up and everything like that. And they kind of, there are some science fictions that kind of take that where that's all gone, that's all lost, like race bigotry and things like that were just kind of stuff that you learn in a history book, you know,
right.
as in kind of what's wrong, right? But to take it out to the point, that again, this is that expansion, that and use of imagination and all that, right? What's it like when it's not a regular part of your life? I mean, racism, right? Like it doesn't. Everyone's doing their job. Everyone's doing their thing. Everyone is, is gaining some kind of, everyone's learning from each other, and then it's just not there. Like, can people think that? Like, can you get to that point where I try to figure out another way, like something that we used to think about, like, I don't know, like the Greeks were very positive about there was a Zeus and a this and a that, right? And Poseidon. But it just became obvious, or kind of things kind of moved on or got other influences. And, it's not there anymore. Right? We know it's not that. Right? Now we read about it in some kind of book. My goal and everything that I do and everything like that is to get there. It's like to the point. And again, that's what bothers me about when I talk about that there are going to be blacks in the future, and it makes people nervous. Like makes people like they weren't thinking about it. And again, not just like your everyday, but even again as in corporations and things like that. They're
Yeah.
developing products. They're developing, again, medicines. They're developing. And I'm like, have you considered, that there might be a black person? Black people might want to buy this. Is a black person even on your, on your list of whoever does want to buy this? Did you take that into consideration when you
Exactly.
were building this? Right. So, yeah, it makes people uncomfortable. I'm kind of glad about that because we're clarifying it all. Again, they don't have to. But it is that. It is that. And when you take Afrofuturism into consideration, like, again, the music, the art, again, the videos, the books, that's in there. That's already in there. That's already, again, outside, kind of, the myopic ways that we're thinking today, and already in play, and they're already celebrating their decisions, and they're already kind of taking it to an exponential point, and other things are going on. Love that. Love that. That's, again, that's futurism, right? That's like kind of like, oh, I never thought of it that way, or oh shit, of course. I think futurism is very basic, almost kind of common sense. But as
Yeah.
you know, when we watch the news or looking out your window
Yeah.
or kind of
Exactly.
something,
Mhm.
that, yeah, common sense,
It's out there
not coming around.
somewhere.
Not coming around.
Somewhere out there.
Well, you bring up a good point when you say that they don't consider us in the future, but then when you think we were never considered in the past. If you look into the psyche of a person of color, I remember as a child watching the Ten Commandments, asking my grandmama, well, when did God create black people? Because I didn't see any black people in the Ten Commandments and any of the old movies, or you start watching the Westerns and everything else. I was confused as a child, like, well, dang, when did black people come on earth? Did we just imaginally just fall out of the
Disappear.
sky one day and change? So I can see why they don't consider us in the future, because we were never considered in the past. But then I wonder, does that play a role in our psyche when it comes to thinking about the future? And do we as colored people, do we even see ourselves in the future?
Right.
Like I said, when you brought up
Mm-hmm.
the thing of futurism, I was like, oh, stunned. And when you said, yeah, black people will be in the future, I just kind of like existed. And I consider myself a bright person that plans ahead, but I just kind of like went along. And I think we've gotten conditioned to the point where we don't plan our own future. We just, oh, they'll figure it out and we'll just exist in it.
Will exist in it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
basically, it's like, oh, they'll figure Elon will get it and he'll get to Mars, and then they'll start giving us, once they build something, then we'll just jump along if they allow us, and then we'll just go along. So this really opens up your mind to think, and it really has opened up my psyche in the way I think about futurism.
And maybe this is the prophecy that you mentioned about AI helping us, or
Mhm.
teaching us, right? So maybe as we become more dependent on AI and its decision making processes, and they're like pure, or they're
Mhm.
inclusive, or kind of something like
Yeah,
that, that
yeah,
will kind of start going along with it. And because it's right, we trust it. It's kind of telling that it may hope may show us a mirror one day, why you make that decision or something like that. But I'm just hoping that it'll be a good partner. Again, just AI is a partner. It's not going to be your overlord. It's not going to be your slave. It's going to be a partner. That it needs you. You need it. You know.
But in today's climate, maybe is there a certain fear of that? Maybe that could be why certain books can't be read in school, and banning the technology to try and stifle futurism.
There's a lot of it, and again, a lot of it comes from a lot of it in the past. That influences our future. And again, with the use of imagination, with the use of again some simple tools, we can start chopping away at all that stuff.
this conversation is super poetic, y'all. I don't know. I'm over here like just soaking all this up. But I did have a question for you too, Rich. Um, I know before you were talking about me and you and Ali talked about how the future, when you think of it, is supposed to be a positive thing. So you kind of on that theme right now. So I kind of wanted to ask you: is there any science fiction books that you recommend, or just books, any type of media that can help people get started? Since this is the intro of the series, what is something good to get people started and understanding where we're going with this?
Specifically within like blacks, or just kind of in general.
Just in general. But I mean, if you have anything for black people too, fire off, bro.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, unfortunately, I don't have it right now because I don't have it in front of me. But I could tell
Hmm.
you, I could share with you, and you can share with your audience at least two or three really great black futurism science fiction writers, or just writers in general. There are like cornerstones. Like
Hmm.
I'm sorry, I don't remember the name. Um, and again, that does an amazing job. Both in looking back and looking forward, and kind of seeing where all that kind of goes from. Um, the Right. So as we were talking about, there's two things about futurism that if you're not doing, if you're not doing, you're not doing it right. One, the fact that it has to be a positive, an actionable plan, right? And the other one, it has to immediately involve community. It has to be a community aspect of it, right? And then so uh, for the positive parts, what I the main thing that I ask people, like in these kind of scenarios, and again, I will find details for you, but it's just to try to stay away from all dystopian science fiction, or dystopian
Yeah,
stories, right? Because
I can see it.
that's what that's what everyone's watching these days, right? I mean, and there's a
Like
brain
Dune
part,
2.
right? Yeah. There's an and again, it's part of it. There's an aspect of your brain that understands that, right? Like also
Hmm.
media and news, right? There's a reason why they always show us all the bad news. There's the reason why they show us all the
Yeah,
bad people, or the rapes, or this or that, instead of like, have you found a
yeah.
positive news station? Right? There isn't one, right? Like
No.
so most media, again, is dystopian, and it is known in in psychology and in other places, dystopia breeds dystopia. So if all we do is sit around and go to dystopian movies and watch dystopian television and read dystopian stories and listen and watch dystopian news, what else would you? What else could you do? Right? Like why? That's all you know. That's all you know. You can't turn around anywhere without that kind of happening. And it's going to add to your program. It's going to add to your bias. It's going to add to your, so my mantra is just, stop watching dystopia, or at least keep it down to a minimum, or at
Right.
least know, now you have revelation that it's going to affect you and it's going to make you want to do more of it. You will then have another filter that you can push that against. Okay, I can understand it, I can respect it, it's kind of fun, whatever, but this can't be me. I can't be thinking here. Can't be do something. It's like when an alcoholic figures out that they're an alcoholic, right?
Yeah.
Then they see it all. They're like, oh shit, here's the 15 beers I had when I came home, which I thought was normal, right? Like, or kind of something like that, right? So you gotta,
Yeah, for sure.
And that's a great analogy that I never thought about, because you hear these people that complain, like you hear women that say, I can't never find a good man, but yet they're constantly talking about how I'm independent, how guys ain't no good, they're liars, they're cheaters, or they're just
yeah,
doing things they're having conversations and doing things that's counterproductive to what they want to achieve.
Yeah.
And they're wondering, like,
yeah,
why I keep getting no good people or negative people around me or lying people.
You
And
manifesting it.
you're in the midst of liars and wondering why you can't
yeah.
find nothing but liars.
But
It's
that,
like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's also that you brought that up, because I actually spend a lot of time these days, specifically in that, because it's some research that I have been working on for some time about the current, um, uh, not the current differences between men and women, but there's a widening gap between how men and women are like now in dating. But I think there's obviously a much larger, kind of across the board. Like we are in a kind of post-COVID society that there's an epidemic, of loneliness and all the other things that are kind of going on, these days. And so I've been working on that. I've been using a lot of my futurism for a future article, when it comes to again, where men and women are, where they were, like in the future, and divorce rates are something I pay attention to. And again, not just in the United States, but kind of around the world, right? And
Yeah.
then this whole
mhm,
dating thing, and what I have found, and again, I'm sure there might be more information, but I keep an open mind and all the other things while I'm doing this. And at least for the dating part, what I have seen, and also the feedback that's kind of coming back. So I know there's a filter and a bias that I'm hearing, but it was like the lie of feminism, right? Is where I'm kind of
mhm,
getting the dating issue, right? Women were told you can have it all, right? You can, have your career, you can have children, you can have a,
mhm.
relationship, you can kind of, do it there. And in some forms they should allow, kind of have it all. But, maybe that's like a futurism, future, aspect of feminism. But what the realities are hitting the ground now, right? And
Yeah.
the other
Mhm.
part, I think the other part we all know, and or maybe people don't know, is that there's a consequence to your actions, right? That's another thing. And again, I think that's a kind of
Oh, not in
society thing.
today's society. There's no accountability in
Yeah,
today's society.
right. And
Always
again,
someone else.
right. So futurism again, starts today and then kind of goes into the future, right? So you have to look at today. And and when it comes to that part of dating, when it comes to all of that, and again, I could probably do a whole show on this, but I don't want to
We
say that
probably
they were
will.
lied, but they didn't take everybody into consideration, right?
Yeah.
So like, it might have been good if the feminists kind of asked the men, about how they felt about this or where it goes, instead of it being like they were
Well,
the
they told
bad
the men
guys.
you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Right. And again, some people do, but there are kind of again other aspects to humanity, the kind of human rules that we all kind of put into place that that bumps its head against that. And numbers, how, like, if you think you're going, if you're I don't want to use a lot of like again. I'm using this as an example, but if you're a 30-year-old woman, and again you went to school and you kind of did everything, and as you were supposed to, and now you kind of come out and you realize that men don't want to date 30-year-olds or kind of 40-year-olds because they're older, right? Men like younger women. Not a surprise. Like younger women have again that internal. There's this internal, program that we all have about wanting to have babies and moving on and moving our
Mhm.
DNA to the next generation and stuff like that, right?
We're running up towards the hour, and I don't want you to lose your final thoughts. So I just want any final words as we got about a minute and a half left that you want to
Woo.
share where people can hear more about you.
Well, okay, yeah, a little bit more about me is that what I have about 20 years of a marketing background. And this is like
Mm.
pre-internet and post-internet. So all be on my website. So it's basically my full name. So it's www.richardbukowski.com. It's RICHARD, B as in boy, UKOWSKI as in igloo.com. So it's my own personal brand. My website will have kind of a breakdown of what futurism is, a breakdown of who I am, constantly updated with new signals of the future. There's some information about my one-on-ones or workshops. And then I also have my videos and all my articles there too.
Also, you can check these episodes out on YouTube and now on Spotify. Yeah, that way. Don't forget to join our Discord community where we will have conversation with Richard and all the others. We are out of time. I thank you all for listening, and we'll check you out next Wednesday on WDJY 99.1 FM. Thank
I'll see
you.
you in the future.
Peace. And to keep this interactive, please leave comments. If you got questions to keep this show going, please put them in the chat box below on YouTube if you're watching it from there. Just wanted to say that. Bye, everybody.
Be well.